and welcome to this very special online event for Off the Shelf Festival. I'm Nick Ahad, and it's my absolute delight to welcome our special guest for this event. Irvine Welsh crashed into Britain's cultural scene with the era-defining Train Spotting. An extraordinary debut novel, it arrived in 1993. It heralded the arrival of a singular voice that catapulted Welsh into the heady world of cool Britannia and immediately established the novelist as a cultural icon. A dozen novels, screenplays, and theatre scripts later, he continues to be a literary and cultural icon. His latest novel, The Long Knives, is a politically charged deep dive into a dark underworld, led by returning hero D.I. Ray Lennox. Irvine, we've met D.I. Lennox before in Crime in Filth in the TV adaptation, where he was played, of course, by Doug Gray-Scott. Why are we back with him again?
I think it was strange because I didn't really plan on doing another book, and then we we shot Crime during COVID, during lockdown, and I was just so impressed by what we had, the actors and Dougray's performance, that I'd written another book basically, and which I've done, but which isn't this one. And I thought I had too much time on my hands basically during lockdown. I thought I'll do another one as well and have it kind of in between. So this second one has become season 2. It's actually filming now, The Long Knives, and the third one, Resolution, is hopefully will be season 3 if season 2 is good enough, basically.
If season 2 is good enough. I mean, the notice
Well,
is
better than season 1 already. It looks better than season 1, so hopefully it will be good enough.
I will talk about this a little bit more, but I am fascinated to know about that. Well, that sort of magpie nature of yours. We often hear the phrase these days, stay in your lane, and you definitely don't want to do that. Why the TV adaptations? Writing TV is so very different to writing novels. Why were you attracted to do that?
Well, I think with film and TV, there are such collaborative things. With a novel, you're on your own. You just until you give it to your editor, basically, and your editor might have a lot of involvement and input and suggest all these changes. Sometimes they don't suggest any changes at all, more often than not. And it's so you're on your own quite a lot of the time, and it's great. You get to play God, and you can just do whatever you want in these blank pages. But it's quite lonely as well. So it's nice to. I think you grow as a writer when you collaborate with other people. So I've been working obviously with Dean Kavanagh. From Bradford on TV and film for a while, and it's you also when you get when you get somebody like Dougray coming in as producer, you've got the actor there with you, and you've got a very creative producer in Tony Wood, so you get all this cross fertilization of ideas, and it really is it's very rewarding to be part of that team basically. So it's just a great thing. You get some people say that the long form TV show is the new novel now, and I mean I find it it's very hard to do one of these things from scratch. When you have the actual novel there, it's a life belt. It's a great thing, adaptation basically. You can really, you've got all the characters and the storylines all there. You just have to try and find a way to give it a visual, a televisual or cinematic language.
I imagine. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't write the first Doug Gray-Scott book with it in mind as a TV piece.
No, I mean I haven't written any of them really in mind as a TV piece. You get what happens is the actor kind of because Dougray and I have spent years basically talking about this and about the character, and that sticks home. That becomes a big part of your kind of imaginative and creative life, and the character embeds. And you think there's so many more stories that I can tell with this character. I can tell the whole story about him being abused as a young kid in the tunnel and his family's reaction to it and what it's kind of done to his family dynamics. I can unravel all that as well as his kind of career in the police force as this almost like a vigilante avenging angel rather than a cop, So and his kind of disaffection with the police force as an organization, all these tales kind of can be told through this character because you've drawn the character. Hopefully, you've drawn the character richly enough. But you have somebody like Dougray and somebody like Tony and somebody like Dean just coming to the character from different angles and breathing all that new life into this kind of central character. It just gives you so much kind of ballast, basically, to sort of to carry on with them.
Lots of people, when they read books, they'll have a picture in their head, and then when it's adapted for TV or for film or for theatre, they don't like the person that ends up playing the hero because they have such a strong idea in their head. Have you always had Doug Gray there?
Yes, I really have, like no other actor before, really, because when I saw Dougray in Twin Town, I thought he was fabulous, and that was one of his first. That was his kind of
Yeah.
breakthrough film in a way, and I thought he was great in it. I thought he was like really good as that. I liked that the kind of energy of that semi-corrupt cop. And when I came to do Filth as a book, I thought about that character in Twin Town, but I also thought very much visually that he looked like I imagined Lennox to look, or Lennox, kind of imagined like Dougray to look like Lennox. And actually, the descriptions, of Lennox in the original book, in Filth, but also in Crime, are very much like Dougray.
Mm.
And I think when I first became pals with him, was kind of years and years ago. We were at some Hibs kind of football too, and we just got chatting, and he said to me, "Have you got anything, any kind of thing that you think I should look at, I should play?" And I said straight away, I gave him Crime. I said, "Read this book," and he was just blown away by it. He was obsessed by it. He's read it about 15 times. He's read it more than I've kind of read it, and that's including all my edits on it. So he's really obsessed with the character, and we've had a long time. We've just about got it done a few times. Just about got it done as a movie. Then we had the Miami stuff, was very expensive to do, so we decided to do the Edinburgh stuff, basically so we could do it over here. We had backers in America, but they wanted to cast all, an American version of Dougray, and Dougray playing a kind of lesser role, and we couldn't really have that. And he was just, he's had this character in his head for so long, and he just blasted it off the screen. He just was right into that character from the start, and he's taken it to even new heights. And the dailies that I get from the show now are just absolutely unbelievable. He's just fantastic in it. I can't believe it. He's actually just got nominated for an international Emmy. He's on the short list of 4 for the International Emmy Awards as Best Actor. And this is just the other day we heard about this. So this is on the basis of season 1. So, and he's much better. He was brilliant in season 1, but he's much better in season 2. So this is, it's an incredible performance by him. And now that we're kind of, we've moved on to ITVX, it'll get a big terrestrial show on ITV, and it'll also get it'll get a bigger streaming platform on ITVX. So it's kind of very exciting for the show. I think it could become quite a big show now.
And very, because obviously season 1 was on BritBox, so this brings it to more people. So is that still something that excites you, stuff like that, Irvine?
Yeah, I mean, it's great because, it's like one of the good things about it, when you do a book, you kind of, you've got your publisher, and but you don't really, you go out and you put the book out, you go around with your publicist and you do your things and all that, but you don't get to share it quite a bit, in the same way. And it's like, it's funny when, for example, when Dougray got the nomination for the Emmy, everybody was just texting me and saying, "This is fabulous, this is great for the show." We're all really excited by it, and that's the great thing about it. You really get to share. You become a little group responsible for this collectively, and you do get to share it, and it's nice to be able to do that, to have that thing. So it does give you a bit of a buzz. The book is like, you get a very personal buzz, when when a copy of the book, a finished copy of the book jumps through the letterbox for the first time, you still get that kind of thing that, I got the first time a train spot, I thought, whoa, this is great, So you get that individual buzz, but, you show it to your wife, or you show it to your mum, or whatever, you show it to a couple of mates, and, it's like kind of, they go, "Oh, well done, great," and all that, but they're not really involved in it, in the whole process of doing it, and you have a drink with your publisher, or go out for a meal and all that, and you have that element of it, and you say, everybody, you say hello to everybody in the publishers and the salespeople and the publicists and all that stuff. But the actual kind of process of it and the output is very much about yourself, and then when you have when you get into that situation with an adaptation of it for screen or for stage, it's just a whole different thing. It's much more of a kind of social activity, really.
You're one of the few writers who has had that hand in hand because 1993 Trainspotting came out, and then very quickly, within a couple of years, it was on screen. So you were there. I was looking at pictures today of you and Danny Boyle and Ewan McGregor and the rest of the cast. So you always had this wonderful thing where you were able to do the solitary novelist thing, but also have a gang around you as well.
Yeah, I mean, and it's such a great thing to be able to do, because you kind of you get into that whole mode. You think to yourself like, you get a gang of people around, you're working on something together. It's a great buzz, and then you get into that kind of slight thinking, this is like having a proper job. Basically, you're going, there's real people to deal with. You just think, I want to hang out with my imaginary friends, basically, and kind of lock myself away and be the artist in the garret and all that. And you get to do that, and then you think, I'm getting a bit psycho, kind of being here on my own with all these people that don't exist. I want to go back out and work with people again. So you get to do that, and you don't really get bored with either of them because you're in that constant state of jumping from one to the other.
It does. It feels like we will come to the book, by the way, and I have to say, it's fabulous. I read the last 60 pages this evening, and it's dark. It's funny. I can't wait to talk more about it. But I want to talk just about what's going on with you at the minute because it feels like you're the busiest writer around. 2 documentaries. You're writing music for theatre productions. You're writing TV shows. Are you in a particularly rich seam at the minute?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it. I mean, COVID and lockdown was really good for me. I kind of had thriver's guilt because I swam against the tide. Basically, I thought like I'm not gonna, I don't want to wake up in lockdown with a hangover, so I'm not going to drink anything until all this is over. I'm not. I'm just going to work. Basically, I'm going to do all these things that I said I was going to finish, and I've finished most of them, not all of them, but I've finished a lot of them. The downside of it is you have to bring them out and promote them and all that. So I'm swamped with all this stuff, but it's just great to get all this out. We've done loads of things. I mean, with my friend Steve Mack and Carl Loban, the editor of DJ Magazine, we started a record label as well. We've got we've got a whole roster of tunes out, and that's been a big thing for us. We just signed somebody else, a great singer, today. So that's kind of going from strength to strength. We're really enjoying doing that. I got back into DJing again about kind of 2 years before the lockdown, so I'm doing quite a lot of DJ gigs now. That's opened up, and I'm doing this radio show in America with Bret Easton Ellis. We're collaborating on this kind of very kind of sort of dark, brutal, but I think very funny sort of kind of radio show about an intergenerational war.
So is that a scripted thing then?
Yeah, it's scripted fiction basically. We're hopefully if it works out as a radio show, we'll turn it into TV. But neither of us have done anything like this before, so it's a kind of whole departure again. It gives you to work in a completely different discipline, and we've not worked together before, so that's kind of been really interesting and fun as well. I've just come back from LA, working with I'm working with Jonas Ackerlund, who's an old pal but a brilliant director, and we're working on this show about Berlin and about kind of the growth of the music scene in Berlin after the fall of the Berlin Wall. So really a lot of things on. We've got we're still shooting crime, still doing bits and pieces on the scripts as it goes. Got another novel hopefully coming out next year, and I'm just finishing one that hopefully will come out the year after that. So I've also done a novella with John King and Alan Warner. We did this Seal Club thing. We brought out this kind of 3 novellas during the first lockdown. So we just decided to do another one of these, So as soon as Alan gets his act together and finishes his story, we'll be ready to go. basically.
Well, if he's watching this, there you go. There's a message for him. I was excited to talk about the DJing thing because I think that's such a fascinating, fun thing that you do. But I mean, Irvine Welsh and Bret Easton Ellis writing together, that's a heck of a combination. Are you aware of how exciting that is for audiences?
Yeah, I think there's a certain from a certain generation, people will really think to themselves, well, what's going on here? What kind of sort of how is it? And it's interesting that we've it's set in America, so it's kind of it's actually set in the South. It's set in Georgia, which is a bit kind of it's like it's it's not it's more out of my comfort zone than Brett's because it's set in America, but it's also like it's also set in this kind of strange world of of kind of sports kind of which is kind of which is a bit kind of a different departure for him as well. So we're having a lot of fun with it. It's been it's been quite a good laugh we've had so far doing it.
And what about the personalities in the room together? I mean, you're both people that audiences have strong ideas about what you must be like as real people.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting that it's very the thing is that there's when you work with someone who's as good as that, and I'm lucky that I work with a lot of really good people now, a lot of good producers, a lot of good co-writers, a lot of good directors and all that. And it's a kind of the interesting thing about all these people is they don't really have that kind of ego. They don't. It's like it's people who are a bit more insecure about where their place in the world is. They try and kind of they're very kind of dogmatic and fixed about it. Whereas people who are a bit more established tend to be a bit more naturally collaborative, and so it's been it's been very smooth. It's been really really such a smooth process so far. So yeah.
That is an extraordinary list that you just reeled off. That you also, I hope you don't mind me saying, got married just a couple months ago. Congratulations on that. How are you fitting all this in, I mean?
Well, that's the thing. We've not been off on honeymoon yet, and I mean, she's into everything as well. She's as busy as I am and all of that. So it's but that was the kind. We had such a great time in lockdown because it was all just romance and work. There's nothing else to do basically. So yeah, we're hoping to just vanish off the face of the earth, kind of about the start of December when she finishes filming, and then we'll go off and do a bit of traveling and all that for a bit, and then come back and just get stuck into some more work again.
Romance and work, it seems like the perfect combination for lockdown.
Best thing in the world, like love and art are the only things worth living for. The only things worth getting out of bed for.
Wow. Or getting into bed for. I don't want to. I don't want to hark back too much, but I do feel like audiences would not be happy if I didn't go back to those heady days, the 1990s. Were you aware of your position in defining that era at the time?
Not really. I mean, you can't really think about things like that because you all you're responsible for is the actual work itself. Whatever you're working on, you bring it out, and you can you. I mean, I have written. I will write probably much better books than Trainspotting, but they're not going to. It's not. It's very unlikely that anything will hit the Zeitgeist in that kind of way, and it's a different time, so it's very hard to do something like that now in a very much more fragmented culture. But you kind of all you can be responsible for is the stuff itself. And the interesting thing is that when you put something out and if people give it the attention or or they don't give it the attention, um, you've moved on to the next thing. So you're immersed completely as a writer. You're immersed in the project you're working on, and the reaction out there and the bigger world is like it's something that really the book is so gone from you at the time. It's like if I walk into a bookstore now and I see my name and all these spines, it's just basically like Irvine Welsh, Faye Weldon. I'll look at Faye Weldon's with the same kind of engagement as I look at mine. It's not like bang, this is me kind of thing. I just think it's just other books that are out there, and I think that's the way that I've always operated. I've always very much lived in the moment of the thing that I was working on. Then it's and you do get people saying, "Wow, that was fabulous. It meant so much to me. It changed my life. It was great. And you read things and all that. But you can't really get invested in that because it doesn't actually have any reality in your own kind of creative life and your own sort of working process.
You've talked in the past about part of the reason that perhaps you're not as critically lauded by the highbrow opinion makers is because you brought out too many books too quickly. Is that I get the feeling you've left that any sort of concern about that well behind now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not really a concern. It's an observation. I think that if you if anybody if somebody had taken somebody had taken kind of 30 years to write Train Spotting, Marabou Start Nightmares, Glue, Filth, Ecstasy. That would have been seen as a really kind of important kind of life's work by critics. But because I've knocked them out in kind of 6 months, or it felt like 6 months, it's almost like kind of no, if he's that quick, he can't be that good. Basically, there's that thing that you have to slate. You have to really be. You have to. It has to be a struggle. It has to be a terrible kind of overwrought, difficult struggle. There can't be any joy in it. There has to be suffering. There has to be, it's just all these nonsense cliches about art that people come out with. Usually people that don't do it themselves, but that struggle to do it, or that kind of find it very, very difficult. It does telling stories, writing stories comes really easy to me. It's like, and it's like, it's like sometimes I think maybe I should leave it, give it another draft and all that. But the next idea for the book burns, for the next book or the next film or the next project, it just burns so strongly in me that I've just got to get on with it. Like, yeah.
Why do you know why it comes so easily? But lots of people struggle with the muse, and you seem to, yeah, it comes easy. Why does it come so easy to you?
I don't know. I mean, I just think that sometimes you are just a storyteller. You look at life in that way. You look at you're always if somebody tells me I've just got quite a kind of speculative imagination in a way. If somebody tells me something like there was half a dozen of us down the pub and this guy walked in kind of with a leopard on a leash and kind of and I keep saying what if it was six women who walked in with a bear on a leash and I just keep on thinking about how can this be made kind of a bit different, a bit stranger, a bit what if it wasn't a pub? What if it was a McDonald's or something like that? So all this is just the way my mind works, and you can't really. I don't really know why it works like that, but you can't really say. But it just does basically.
I want to go back even further than the 90s. I want to go back to 1978 when you came to London to be a punk rocker. And I think you will excuse me saying that you had less success as a punk rocker than you did as a writer.
Oh, terrible! No success at all in music. And that's the kind of me because I had instant success as a writer. I never wanted to be a writer. I never even thought about it. Even when I was writing the first novel, I didn't think it would be necessarily be. I thought it would create a little bit of an impact, but just locally. I didn't think it would. What would happen with it, and that really surprised me because I always had this vanity that I would be really good at music, and it was terrible. It's just as a terrible musician. I just didn't have any musical skills. I couldn't play any instrument. I couldn't sing. I could write kind of decent songs. I thought I could write decent songs, but it was just something that it wasn't really. I wasn't getting to anywhere like the level that I wanted to be with music, and I think for me the digital thing in music has been great because it's really rekindled my interest in it because I can do that. I can sit there and I can plonk out a little kind of tune on keyboards and I can sample it and I can I can put down a sample of bass line and all that sort of stuff. And then I've got something I can take it to my buddy Steve in the studio and we can work on it and he can just do all his magic with it. But I can construct a rudimentary decent tune, decent song now. Without kind of eluding me before because I just didn't have the musicianship to do it. So that's been a bit of a revelation. But
Yeah.
again, it's like it's the same thing as the word processor. If it was left to Biros, and you know, I would never have been a writer.
What are you like as a DJ? I'm fascinated to know. Tell me about your DJing.
I tend to be quite. I know my limitations as a DJ. I don't have time to do loads of sort of mixing. I don't have time to bring my own kind of samples. When actually, if I prepare for a set and I have a bit of time, I'm reasonably good. Um, I think everybody thinks they've got great taste in music and they can read a crowd and all that, but I think that you have to. I think that I don't always do. Sometimes I get up on one little trip and everybody's like, we're away to the bar or whatever. But generally, I try and read the room and I try and play upbeat party sounds. I mean, if there's a lot of if it's a bunch of kind of monstrous guys, that are all just shirts off and just banging all that, I'll just play loud banging techno all night. 130, 140 BPM and all that. But if there's a lot of women in the crowd, I'll keep it between 110 and 120, and I'll play a lot of soul and sort of acid house, a lot of disco stuff that's going to get people up and dancing and having a good time.
Hey, you get bookings. I mean, like this isn't some side project. You're a proper DJ.
Yeah, I started off as kind of semi-proper DJ back in the 90s, and then it was like the writing took off, and DJ hours and writers hours are the exact opposite. You get up in the morning as a writer at 6 o'clock, and that's when you do your best work. You're just getting home as a DJ. So something really had to give, and it was only when two things happened basically. You could get all your tunes on a USB card instead of lugging around big flight cases all over the place. So that was fabulous. But the other thing was that I moved to Miami, and I was fortunate in Miami that I was, it's all this afternoon pool parties. So you can get up early, do a big shift of writing, kind of get a little bit of lunch, go around, play an afternoon pool party for a couple of hours, go home, have dinner, kind of, and have a quiet night in. Have the carpet slippers on and all that kind of stuff, and watch a bit of telly or whatever. So yeah, it worked great. But now it doesn't work. Now I'm back over here most of the time. It doesn't work quite so well. But I've got the bug again, so I'll keep doing gigs and the doing the doing the label has really got me enthused again. We just brought out a great song from John Carter today. It's John's come back after 15 years, basically. He's not done anything for 15 years. He went into the hotel business and he's just got back into it. And it's absolutely brilliant. It's just such a fabulous piece of work. And it's just so dancey and quirky and fun. Everything that kind of house music and dance music should be, So it's great and he's an old pal of ours, and it's just great that we've been able to facilitate and be part of this comeback. It's just really exciting.
I love how excited you are by all the different creative projects that you've got going on. There's something I like to do when I'm doing these interviews. I like to find a little nugget, and there's something that I found. A very old colleague of yours, said that I say very old, someone before you were doing this. Said that you were actually quite an impressive civil servant, and I'm wondering, did all this success rob the world of a great civil servant, Irvine?
I was a local government officer rather than a civil servant, but similar, local rather than central government. Yeah, I sort of, I did quite a couple of interesting sort of management jobs down in London and in up in Edinburgh, and yeah, I think that I always find that I've got a good year in me doing a kind of 9 to 5 job, and then I'm fed up and I just apply for another one and bullshit my way into a more promoted job, So if I keep moving and keep getting promoted, I'm really good. But you can't do that every year. People get fed up. And then after the second, third year, they start to suss you out. Think this guy's a bit of a waster. He's not really completely engaged with us. He's got other things going on. And I'm just not a 9 to 5 guy. I've tried so hard to be one at times, because I've had situations whereby I've just, I've needed to work. I've needed to keep busy to because the devil makes work for idle hands, and keep myself out of bars and keep myself away from clubs and drugs and all that sort of stuff. So that was, like really
developing a career was a way of not doing that. But it was also, I also felt that that was kind of killing me. I wasn't cut out for that kind of life, and I just feel that having a job that you can express yourself in creatively, and you can get up when you like, go to bed when you like, is just much more me. Basically, that's what I was meant to do.
Well, it brings us very nicely, talking of politics, to this. There's so much to talk about. The politics are very clear in this book. There's one thing that I really want to start with, and that's the identity politics. It's a hell of a nettle for a white male of your age to grasp of identity politics. Why did you do that?
Precisely the reason you say, like, I think if you're gonna do something, you've got to go where the action is, where the controversies is, where the debates are about the world that we live in, and I just thought we'll just jump in head first right into it and see what because it's like, to me, every book that I write in some ways is a way of finding things out, is a way of learning things myself. I think if you jump in and then you just you try and be respectful to everybody, but you try and make interesting rounded characters from whatever social milieu you're writing about. You jump in and then you look at what you've got back and you think to yourself, well, I must start to test this against reality, and you start to research it and you think, well, this isn't quite right, that isn't quite right, this is um, and what I did was it was interesting because when I finished the book, they had a sensitivity reader, a trans sensitivity reader for the trans characters
Yeah.
in the book, and I was kind of dreading it. I had that sort of basically, the old white kind of guys thing. This is censorship. This is terrible, and all that kind of thing. And it was actually a brilliant moment. It was absolutely fabulous. The feedback was spot on. It was superb. It was supportive. It was encouraging, and it also pulled me up in things that I'd got wrong. And it was just what it was a really, really brilliant, uplifting experience, and it made the book kind of, I think, a lot better. We had the same thing on the TV show. We've had the same process, and it has helped. Because, and I think it's a great thing because we're in this. This is all new. It's relatively a new thing to come into. It's not. I mean, trans people have always been existed, but their visibility and now their cultural visibility has meant that there's a whole new sort of there's a whole new lot of considerations to think about. And it also goes so much hand in hand with the identity politics of everybody in society, because everybody feels in a way let down. We feel that the world that we knew, the economy, the society, it's all crumbling around us, and we don't feel we have any place in it anymore, and we cling to all these different identities rather than a common humanity, basically. So we're all heavily invested in this. So it is interesting. It's a really fascinating thing to do, and it's been a terrific education for me writing the book, basically.
I should say that there's the several trans characters in the book. Not all of them sympathetic. We're not going to give anything away. And when I read it, honestly, I genuinely was brought up short that you'd gone there, because you're active on Twitter, you're a Scottish author. There's previous there of someone wading into those waters and not coming off very well. Did your publishers and editors say, "What are you thinking"?
Yeah, I think they were a little bit nervous at first, but I think that I think you can always see what people's motivations are in doing something like that. If you were kind of like if it was like to if you're like to kind of there to kind of try and be kind of a smart arse and poke fun at trans people and all that kind of stuff, that would be, it'd be boring, and it would be out straight away, and and it's like, and it'd just be like some of these cretins on social media doing that kind of thing, but and equally, if you're being this like this canonization of everybody who's gone through a trans experience, or who's self-identifying as trans as some kind of very brave, saintly, iconic kind of figure and all that, you'd be, again, it's nonsense. It's real people trying to come to grips with all with what's going on in their lives and how they understand themselves and their identity in the world in a quite a radical way, as everybody's trying to do is to some extent, everybody's trying to work out where they stand in relation to the changing, shifting world. So you have to see it in that way. It's like if you look at it, it becomes more apparent in the TV show than the book. You see that everybody, whether they're straight or gay or black or white or men or women or trans people or binary people, they're all looking for their place in this world. They're all trying to figure this out and work out where they stand in relation to this very shifting world, which is, a world of deindustrialization, of the end of the division of labor, of all the roles the classic roles have all been ascribed, and we're all kind of like rabbits in the headlights, but also like jockeying for position to try and find our way through all this kind of stuff, So I find that absolutely fascinating. I think this is what novelists have to engage with. They have to engage with the deindustrialization, with the end of capitalism, with the growth of a conceptual world and that we live in, and the end of paid work and all that. We have to grasp all these things because that's the reality of the world we're living
in. It's endlessly fascinating listening to you. It really is. I mean, there is a group of people that I think it's fair to say don't come off brilliantly, and those are toffs, and let's call them conservative MPs because that's what they are. I'm not necessarily conflating the two. Your politics are very clear, and they always have been, aren't they?
Well, I think it's like the thing is that we really, if we're going to have any hope as a species, if we're going to get on, the things that we have to do is that the two things that I think we have to do is we have to share the resources more equitably, and we can't just have everything being siphoned off into an elite. And we also have to get rid of the institutions, the old antiquated institutions of imperialism and of industrialism that can facilitate this. We need proper democracy to be developed. So we can't have that luxury of some people having this entrenched privilege and just lording it over everybody, or being kind of facilitators of this kind of this system where everything's being sucked into this kind of black hole of capital, basically, that nobody's benefiting from. And I think it's like, I never thought I would say this, but I think we need to save capitalism. We need to, for at least a while, until we work out how we can make this transition. And it's funny that ironically it's the people on the right who are saying like just fuck the whole system up and we'll go back into this boring kind of fiefdoms and tribal nonsense and all that. That's not going to do anybody any good. If we're going to progress, we have to I think we have to kind of let ourselves get to the point whereby the current what we have is being replaced by something that seems to be viable and democratic and just, and that people can really buy into. Because otherwise, we're just going to keep repeating the same horrible cycle of history again.
I don't want people to get the wrong impression and think that this is some kind of polemic, but I'm not. I won't go through too many of them, but it's very, very clear. You talk about there's a certain minister who wants to essentially by corrupt means sell off the NHS. You get a few digs in at the BBC, and there's an amazing bit where you say since winning that battle at Orgreave, they've strengthened their grip, consolidating power. Now I'm reading through it, and there's so many passages like that. And again, it's not because your characters are a mouthpiece. Those are the politics that belong there. But I wonder how much of that do you sit down and think, this is what I want to say about the world, and it's going in the long knives.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this book, in a lot of ways, is quite overtly political. I didn't realize at first, but I think it's like, it's to me, it's like it's one of the interesting things that, being the age I'm at, if you look at the state in relation to the individual, particularly working class individuals, that my generation were the generation who the post-war kind of generations from 1947 up to about 1975 or something. People that were born in that kind of bracket there, they had, because of the guilt of fighting in these two world wars, there was a sort of there was a notion of a welfare state. There was a notion of full employment. All these were kind of the sacred cows of post-war Britain. There was a notion of kind of and a sort of the empire became the Commonwealth and all. There's a notion of kind of this trying to do right by everybody. We're kind of sort of we're moving towards being this sort of this bigger community with higher aspirations. You had all the ideals of the 60s that kind of came over from America, and these were vintage times, for being working class. You could pay, you could have you were given education. You could have comprehensive education. And if you didn't do well at school, you could pay £1 and get a couple of A levels at some FE college, and then you could go to university. You get a full grant. You get your fees paid. You could work during the summer. There's plenty of jobs to do. You got decent money. You got tax rebates and all that. For, you had it. You really had. You got, if you wanted to spend time in the dole, you had good dole payments, so you could hang around in your band and practice. And take a summer out and do all that kind of stuff. You were still at the bottom of the pile in the class system, but you had a decent. There was a much. The state operated in a kind of quite a giving way. It gave you education, it gave you welfare, or it gave you a good health service. You had all these things that you could access. And now when you look at how the state meets the individual, particularly working class people, but all individuals, all citizens, middle class, and even some lower upper class people as well, the state meets them in a very oppressive way. It basically takes their money, it takes their taxes, it offers them nothing back. It doesn't offer them education, it doesn't offer them health, it doesn't offer them full employment. It siphons all these resources off to either multinational capital or to local kind of Conservative Party donors that are kind of into all these shenanigans. And it doesn't, and if it does meet the individual, it's like it's lockdown, it's COVID, it's take this job, it's go to jail, it's CCTV camera, it's like kind of don't do this, don't do that, So it's not giving anything, it's taking, it's controlling. So the relationship between the individual and the state is very different. And this is, and we hear about it talked in these kind of very sort of our political institutions are a little bit, people disrespect them a little bit. They don't really appreciate them as they used to, and all this nonsense. But it's basically about the long-term change between the relationship between the individual and state. And it really struck me that that was what Orgreave was kind of about, really. It was about that, the smashing of working class collective power, and it was about that kind of hegemony of elites. And it's really consolidated its grip since then. You just have to look at where the money's gone in the last 40 years, basically.
Wow. Well, as you can see, that's why your politics sprinkled throughout this book. We'll come to the fact that it's a right rollicking read as well, because people will go away thinking, is this a political thing? You do also you talk briefly about independence, and you definitely have a thing about Glasgow versus Edinburgh in there.
Well, the Glasgow versus Edinburgh thing I just find really funny. It's like it's one of these things. It's like it's a bit like kind of football rivalry and all that. It's a performative. It's not a genuine dislike or hatred, but it's a performative, playful kind of thing that people kind of torment and tease each other about. And because it's like it's a cultural thing. It's there to have a bit of fun with and to rip the piss out of it, but it's not a serious thing, really.
Well, we'll see what the Ouija's think when they read the book.
They give as good as you get.
Like I say, it's genuinely thrilling. It's a brilliant piece of work. I have to tell you, coincidentally, I happen to be in London for work, and the hotel that I'm staying at is bang opposite the Savoy. And every morning I walk out and I look across and I think, I hope I'm not going to see someone in a terrible state because there's a horrible, horrible passage in the book. This is one of the most appallingly violent, awful books that I've ever read of him. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. The Savoy actually have a. I mean, I'm maybe biting off the hand that feeds me there. I've never kind of enjoyed the largesse, but the Savoy have actually had a really good thing with writers. They've kind of always had some kind of writer in residence thing. You know, they had Cathy Lett kind of guzzling cocktails there for years and all that. She was always inviting me down. I never quite made it down, but and it's just such a great location, the Savoy, and I've always loved that. I've always just loved the signage of it, you know, and it's in the evening when it's all lit up and you've got, you know, it's such a gorgeous hotel. It's such a kind of great kind of old London institution. So I thought, let's have something crazy kick off in the Savoy.
Well, yeah, it is a great institution. It looks lovely, but now I'm filled with nothing but dread every time I walk past. When people read the book, they'll understand what I'm talking about. I mean, it is horrifically violent. How do you go to places that I don't know how much you want to give away? I'm not going to describe it. The horrifying violence. How do you go there with that?
Um, I think what you have to do with anything you do, if you're doing like anything that seems a bit visceral, like you know, violence or sex or whatever, they have to be congruent with the character. You have to make sure that this is in the whole kind of emotional lexicon of that character. Because if it doesn't, if it's not, um, it'll really jar with the reader. But the reader will always go with you if you think this is how that character would behave in that situation, you know. So you put them in extreme situations, and you kind of, you know, I mean, it's like we're all dramatists as writers that we should be, you know. We don't want you don't want a. It's when things go right that are in, that when things go right they're boring. When things go wrong they're interesting. You know, you kind of you know, you can write about an accountant, for example, going into work, you know, every day, and there's maybe one day in kind of sort of 5,000 days that he'll come home from work and he'll find one of his work colleagues shagging his wife, and they're kind of, you know, he disturbs them, they're laughing at him. He goes down to the bar. Um, he starts to get really drunk and feel terrible about it. Then he meets this guy who's just been come out of a car crash and staggers in all, you know. So these things don't often happen, but when they do, you bring them together for the purposes of the drama. You just let these things unravel. You let the character um, unravel and behave in this way, you know. And I think you can have people doing really bad things and going to really bad places, provided they're kind of groping for the light switch, you know. So they can be in the darkness, but if they're groping for the light switch, the reader will go with it. And also, if you use humor, if you use humor to reduce the tension at certain points of it, you know, so you're kind of sitting there thumbing through the book, going, oh God, I don't know about this. Then you're suddenly, bang, the tension's away. You put it down, you have a little think, and you're back into it again. You can let things build up again. So that's the kind of way I like to write. I like to write. I like to write something that is kind of, it makes people kind of think, makes me think, and and challenges me, but it's also very visceral and a thriller in a way that you're kind of having to keep the pages turning. So you think at the end of it, you think, my God, what was all that about? Yeah.
I laughed out loud at the description of a tourist under a statue. You know what I'm talking about. There was also the moment that made me have a lovely little rush that I imagine lots of people will have. It's a tiny little moment when the name Begbie suddenly comes up out of nowhere, which was lovely.
All these things now just become cultural touchstones. It's great.
Absolutely. I'd like to say genuinely, I finished the book half an hour before we chatted this evening. I can't wait to go back and read it again, knowing now what I know. That must take some really intricate plotting from you.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to let the characters do most of the plotting for me. You know, just put them in these positions and think, well, what is the action they're going to take in this and that kind of, you know, that precipitates something else and it kind of begats something else. But again, there's times when you do have to, you know, I'm not a great plotter, but there's, you know, an overt plotter, but there's times when you have to get all that stuff up on the wall and start have arrows, going all over the place, and just map it all out in that way too. Yeah.
We're going to get a reading, and because we'd normally be doing this in front of an audience, I'm going to kind of ask the audience questions after we get the reading. But I have to ask finally, what's next? You're having two documentary crews follow you around at the minute, right?
I've got them following me around everywhere. I thought they were actually kind of. I keep expecting them to sort of come into the marital bed when we're kind of getting busy with each other, but it's not happened so far. I do keep looking over my shoulder.
Let's hear a bit of The Long Knives. It's a wonderful, wonderful book. I can't recommend it highly enough. I can't wait for you to share this.
Brilliant. This is just a short section where Lennox is he's in London and he's met up with this guy Hollis, who's a London detective, who's kind of almost like the London equivalent of him. He's another kind of maverick, kind of sort of alcoholic, can't be arsed with the bureaucracy and the authorities and his governors and all that. And Hollis takes him to this boxing event at the York Halls. Hollis is an ex-boxer, and they've taken this guy Colin Neville, who's an old pro, with them, and they're watching this old guy getting a beating, and it's not been good for Colin Neville, basically. So Hollis is furiously texting on his phone as the bewildered veteran in the ring is administered smelling salts by his corner. Colin Neville seems to have had enough, departing, shaking his head and mumbling as he heads to the exit. Maybe the guy's being pummeled was a bit triggering for him, Lennox ventures. Yeah, possible. Always was a bit one skin too few for this guy. Hollis gets back on his phone. Lennox watches the vet being helped to his feet, 2 days to fully acknowledge the dancing, performative young man who dispenses him a perfunctory embrace. He feels his own disabled phone in his pocket, can sense the calls and texts racking up. Wonders about Trudy and case breakthroughs as a roar goes up advising a local favourite is about to hit the ring. In profile, he regards Hollis, who is grimacing tensely. It takes Lennox a few seconds to realise that his new friend is in some kind of distress. The colour has drained from his chalky white face as he looks furtively at his two brothers. They're both now focused on the contest. Lennox asks Hollis about the combatants, but the London cop's teeth are clenching as he holds his arms tightly into his chest. I have to go, Hollis declares, and as he stands up, blood soaks the back of his jeans. Lennox is stunned, looking at the Hollis brothers, who are oblivious to this in their ring concentration. His first bizarre thought is somebody stabbed him. Jesus fuck, Mark, I'll get an ambulance. Leave it, Ray. Hollis ties his puffer jacket round his waist, covering his arse. Then he stumbles forward, scattering some unoccupied seats in front, his eyes rolling into his head. The people around him are on their feet, Lennox rising first. Hollis is lying in a pool of blood, wedged between 2 rows of seats. His brother Steve whistles for the paramedics, who are quickly to hand. Hollis is ranting deliriously as they hoist him onto a stretcher and take him away. Blood stains the seats and the wooden floor. This looks bad. Lennox and the Hollis brothers follow the paramedics, who lead the blacked-out Mark Hollis from the hall. At the rear of the car park, they help them load him into an ambulance. Then the brothers promptly exit the vehicle, leaving Lennox to travel with Hollis to the hospital. Don't mind, do you, Jock? This fight could be tasty. And they shut the doors on Lennox and their semi-conscious big brother. As Hollis groans, the ambulance tears off. Sirens blazing through the traffic towards the thankfully nearby Royal London Hospital. Looking out the back windows, Lennox is just thinking, this is fucking serious, when the stricken Hollis appears to focus on him. Sorry, Ray, he groans. This is the worst I've been. What is it? What's going on, Mark? Hollis averts his gaze from Lennox, looking at the roof of the vehicle, Sweat drips from him. There he Styles, mate. I was due to go in hospital next week and have him done under general. I was dreading it. Hopefully they'll move it forward now. Do it straight away. Lennox can scarcely believe his ears. Looks into the front of the vehicle where the paramedics sit. One tense at the wheel, the other mimicking his edginess. I've never known piles that severe. Fuck's sake, I've got them myself. Nah, mate, these ain't your normal Rockfords. Hollis gasps, his eyes bulging as he swivels his head to Lennox. They're potential killers. You can bleed out like a hemophiliac from them. The consultant warned me this could happen any time. Should have been done years ago. There we go.
I can't believe that's the passage you chose. So I wondered if
no pun intended. That was.
I wondered if you'd get to the whole Harry Styles, Rockwood Files of it, but there you go. Perfect example of being horrified and being made to laugh in the same passage. Just amazing. I'm gonna, like I say, we'd normally be doing this in front of an audience, so I'm gonna do some quick fire questions to finish off with. Thank you so much for doing that. The book's available now. You can probably see that I'd highly recommend it. I actually stopped marking out my favorite passages because I thought, well, I'm going to run out of post-it notes. It's wonderful. Thank you for writing it.
Thank you.
So, quick fire questions then. Who are your literary heroes?
I think probably. I mean, I don't really. I'm not big into hero worship. I tend to go for the books and the works rather than focus on the individual. I think you know if you're looking at actual books that I'm really madly into, I've read Ulysses about kind of 5 or 6 times, and every decade of my life I seem to read Ulysses, and I get something different from it every time. So I would say that. For that reason, I suppose kind of Joyce would be one of them. Surprisingly, a different social milieu for me, but Evelyn Waugh was a kind of really instrumental writer for me because he wrote this. He wrote the Guy Crouchback trilogy, the Men at Arms trilogy, and I always liked the male Schadenfreude that he had in this. It's totally different. Kind of again, it's like it's an upper class English society, but he really seemed to be onto something. I think the way that guys were actually this kind of competitive, affectionate, shun embrace type of way with each other. And that kind of, I think that was a big influence on me, literary wise. In Scotland, it would be people like McIlvanney and Kelman and all these, Alistair Gray, all these kind of great big Scottish writers, Janice Galloway, these people that emerged just before I was kind of thinking about how I would I have an opportunity to be a writer in some way.
I was going to ask you about your favourite book, but I think we've covered that. So what about your favourite book written by Irvine Welsh?
I don't know. I think probably Marabou Stork Nightmares or Skag Boys, or maybe Glue. I'm not sure. I think that these are the 3 that for some reason I always just kind of come back to as references. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's you kind of you're hopefully proud of them all. There's a couple that I think the world might have been better or would have got by without, but most of them I'm quite I kind of can stand by them, which is good.
I'm not going to ask you to name those ones. Would you love to be a bingo caller?
Would I like to be a bingo caller again? Yeah, I mean I've done that. It was great. It was fun, but it's not something you want to do for a long period of time. You kind of that's the problem with jobs, with any job. It's like you don't really want to do it for more than a year. I mean, I don't want to do any. I can't think of any job that I've had that I've wanted to do for more than a year, except this, because you get to reinvent every time. You get to move into a different world with different people every time you fancy it.
What makes you angry?
I'd say that it's funny. It's like I don't know, the usual things kind of make you angry. Kind of, I mean, nobody likes kind of bullying or people denigrating other people in company. It's really awkward and it's kind of embarrassing and all that. And that sort of that makes me quite annoyed. I think when you get I get angry at football, if Hibs have kind of fucked up in some way, they've shot themselves in the foot and all that, and not defended or cleared the lines properly and all that, which happens from time to time. But it's fleeting, you know. It's like I don't really. I do get angry about things. Obviously, you get angry when you see politically, when you see people who've got, you know, who seem to have everything but can actually have nothing, and you think to yourself, you'd be happier with a lot less money. You know, you'd be happier with, you know, and everybody else would be happier to have some of that to kind of help pay their bills and all that. So why are we tolerating this absolute nonsense?
So social injustice, bullying, and shit defending.
That's a good trio.
If you could sum up the long knives in 3 words, what would those 3 words be?
I think rollicking good fun would be how I would describe it.
Works for me. And when were you happiest?
I think you're always. I mean, I tend to live in the moment, so you're always happiest if things are going well for you in the moment. And I mean, the moment being, you know, the few days and weeks and months around where you actually are. And I'm probably at my happiest now. You know, it's like things are really good. I've got that Scottish Calvinist fatalism about saying that, because you think this is when the arrow just goes in the neck, like, you know. But things are great right now, and you know, it's like I've lived through some great times. I've had some wonderful times, and I'm still having them. And that's, you know, it's like I'm in my 60s now, and you think, so you're really lucky to have had this run that you have had. You know, I can't, you know, you have bad days and all that, but they've been very fleeting in the last kind of 30, 40 years. I can't remember that many real bad days, you know, and that's wonderful. You know, it's very lucky and very fortunate, and I'm aware of how fortunate I am. But yeah, I'm happy now, so that's, you know, I live in the now, and that's a good thing.
Well, I'm sure everyone listening and watching from Off the Shelf are very happy that you're here. Watch out for arrows, watch out for documentary makers, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much.